From our News First studios here in Colombo, bringing you the news, and Mariam Ganavijaya. We start off with a look at your top stories for this afternoon.
US Ambassador at Large for Cyberspace and Digital Policy to arrive in Sri Lanka on the 20th of August. Will assist Sri Lanka to face financial debt challenges, says Chinese Foreign Minister. Opposition questions current state of affairs. Why should the proposed labour laws be defeated? Leaflet distribution in Colombo. Agbo elephant to be subjected to a special inspection.
On to your lead story this afternoon, the United States Ambassador at Large for Cyberspace and Digital Policy, Nathaniel Seyfick, will visit Sri Lanka this weekend.
The U.S. State Department said United States Ambassador at Large for Cyberspace and Digital Policy Nathaniel Seyfick will travel to Sri Lanka from August 20th to 23rd. He will hold bilateral consultations in Colombo with a range of counterparts in government, the private sector and think tanks on cybersecurity, information and communications, technologies and digital freedom. Before heading to Sri Lanka, Ambassador Fick will be in India from August 17th to 20th. Ambassador Fick will head the U.S. delegation to the G20 Digital Economy Ministerial meeting in Bangalore. He will highlight U.S. views on digital economy topics, including priority areas set by India's G20 presidency, digital public infrastructure, security in the digital economy, and digital skilling.
In the meantime, China says it is ready to help Sri Lanka address challenges of financial debt. The assurance came during a meeting between the director of the Office of the Central Commission for Foreign Affairs of China and the Sri Lankan Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena.
Wang Yi, director of the Office of the Central Commission of Foreign Affairs and a member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, vowed that China will help Sri Lanka effectively address the challenges of financial debt. He noted that China is always Sri Lanka's reliable strategic partner and appreciates that Sri Lanka has always been friendly to China and has stood by China on issues related to its core interests. He added that China also firmly supports Sri Lanka in safeguarding its sovereign independence and national dignity and is willing to strengthen exchanges of experience in governance as well as cooperation in various fields with Sri Lanka. Wang vowed that China will help Sri Lanka improve its capacity for independence development, get rid of poverty trap and the trap of non-development, accelerate its industrialization process and agricultural modernization. He expressed belief that Sri Lanka will overcome its temporary difficulties, find the development path in line with its national conditions and realize revitalization and prosperity.
State Minister of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka, Tharaka Balasurya, says that enhancing maritime security and jointly addressing environmental challenges can ensure safer navigation and protect our oceans for generations to come. He was speaking at China's South Asia Cooperation Forum.
China has been Sri Lanka's #1 investment partner since the total investments from China from 2005 to 2022 is recorded over $3.4 billion. The China's Belt and Road Initiative and South Asia's regional connectivity efforts also converge in projects like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and the Bangladesh-China-India-Myanmar Economic Corridor. These initiatives exemplify the spirit of maritime cooperation where infrastructure developments along the sea routes to share prosperity. By enhancing maritime security and jointly addressing the environmental challenges, we can ensure safe navigation and protect our oceans for generations to come. Further, Sri Lanka's expressway projects, which are implemented by the government and the Chinese finance, facilitate the DR. In this context, I would like to stress the investment from China critical to continue to propel Sri Lanka's economy. As Sri Lanka emerges from the recent economic crisis, we invite more investment from China in Sri Lanka. I would like to use this forum to stress on the success of the ongoing Colombo Port City project, which is the largest ever investment in Sri Lanka and is key to Sri Lanka's national mission of becoming a financial and commercial hub in the region, realizing the benefits of this strategic advantage of being located at the very center of the Indian Ocean. This strategic location can also be further beneficial for the technology and other collaborations. As Sri Lanka can serve as a partner between China and other South Asian nations such as India, Pakistan and Bangladesh.
The Samigijana Balavega commented on external influence during a media briefing on Thursday the 17th.
The president from time to time comes forward and makes various comments. Today's newspaper says that Sri Lankan children will have to learn Hindi and Chinese in the future. Does it mean that the country will be given to India and China? Another Chinese vessel is to reach Sri Lanka, and that would become a concern for India. What is actually happening here?
The People's Struggle Movement says that Sri Lanka is in an era where it will be taken over by foreign nations.
රනිල් රාජපක්ෂ ඉන්දියාවට ගිහිල්ලා මෝදි එක්කයි චාදානි එක්කයි සාකච්ඡා කරලා එනවා මේ රටේ බලශක්ති ස්වාධිපත්‍ය ඉන්දියාවට පවරන්න. දැන් ඉන්දියාව ඇමරිකාව ඇතුළු රටවල්
Countries including India and America are trying to make our country their colonies. The people are dying of hunger. They die of substandard medicine. The era is dawning where people will die after being taken over by other countries in the world. This is why we have decided to continue this fight against the conditions of the IMF and against the colonization by the Americans and Indians.
The Kurunegala District Convention of the National Trade Union Centre took place on Wednesday the 16th.
What we are experiencing is total destruction. The youth are being compelled to leave the country instead of developing an attitude to stay and build the country. This is the most serious destruction. These rulers will try to hold on to power as long as they can constitutionally. When they fail, they try to do away with the constitution and try to retain power through various means including suppression. The agreement with India is not for fuel pipeline. It is political dominance. When we bow down to their economy, we eventually will have to bow down to the political dominance.
The Indo-Pacific Environmental Security Forum will conclude on Thursday.
The Indo-Pacific Environmental Security Forum 2023, co-hosted by the US Indo-Pacific Command, Sri Lanka Navy and Sri Lanka Coast Guard, is currently underway in Colombo. On the 16th of August 2023, during the third day of the forum, a series of activities were held, including presentations, panel discussions and collaborative group sessions centered around the impacts of urbanization and land security. The primary objective was to facilitate the exchange of insights and exemplary approaches among stakeholders concerned with environmental security. On Thursday, the Sri Lanka Navy and Sri Lanka Coast Guard collaborated to arrange workshops which included techniques of cultivating coral on an artificial reef located in Colombo Port City and the proper procedures for conducting a scientific mangrove plantation trial in the Negombo Lagoon. The Indo-Pacific Environmental Security Forum 2023 is scheduled to conclude on Thursday.
A program to raise awareness among the people on the proposed labour law took place opposite the Fort railway station in Colombo.
The program was themed on defeating the proposed labour laws and was organised by the National Labour Advisory Council.
In the 1800s, the workforces were employed for 8 hours a day. Now people work for 6 hours a day. There are no laws to deploy women to work at night. People need facilities. Instead of making children work, they should be given facilities to study. People need a proper salary if they are to work for 8 hours, and tariffs are being increased. Instead of providing relief, they are trying to bring laws that will force people to work for over 12 hours a day.
In the meantime, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board warns that the supply of water to several districts will have to be restricted due to the arid weather conditions.
Anoja Kaluarachi, the Deputy General Manager of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, said that the distribution of water to the Kandy and Monaragala districts is taking place as per the schedule. She noted that the supply of water to the Kurunegala town was also restricted.
The Water Management Unit of the Department of Irrigation says that the water capacity across 74 main irrigation reservoirs have dropped to 29%. Director of the Water Management Unit of the Department of Irrigation, Engineer Sudarshani Vidhanapathirana says that water can be released as per a schedule from the Hurulu River and Nachaduwa River in Anuradhapura.
Sri Lanka's Agriculture and Agrarian Insurance Board said that over 36,000 acres of rice fields were destroyed due to arid weather conditions. Chairman of the Agricultural and Agrarian Insurance Board, Madhuma Bandarveerasekara, told News First that the worst affected areas are reported from Kurunegala district with total destruction of 16,000 acres of rice fields. He said that officials from Agricultural and Agrarian Insurance Board have been deployed to the affected areas to assess the crop damage.
Farmers cultivate paddy using water from the Matala River and Rathmale River in Min area, Polonnaruwa, have started to reap their harvests. However, these farmers claim that they are not receiving a proper price for their produce. Farmers also note that there is no proper mechanism for the purchasing of paddy.
Sri Lanka's Paddy Marketing Board says that the stocks of paddy in its possession will be sufficient for less than a month.
Chairman of Sri Lanka's Paddy Marketing Board, Attorney at Law Buddhika Iddamalgoda told News First that the PMB is in possession of approximately 4.5 million kilograms of paddy. He said that 33 storage facilities were opened for the purpose of purchasing paddy from local rice farmers. The Paddy Marketing Board said that it is ready to open the closed-down storage facilities in the Hambantota district, where farmers have been reluctant to sell their paddy to the state if a request is made via the local agrarian organizations.
Nutmeg plantations across several areas in Sri Lanka have been affected by a fungi infection. Deputy Director General of the Department of Export Agriculture, Shantha Bandara, says that given the existing situation, there is a possibility of a collapse in the nutmeg industry.
Nutmeg is considered as one of the most successful export products in Sri Lanka. The nutmeg cultivations in Kandy, Kegalle, Matale and Rathnamura districts have been affected by the fungi infection. Planters say that due to the fungi infection, the leaves stop growing, resulting in the death of the plant.
The annual general meeting of the Sri Lankan Agripreneurs Forum, or the SLAF, was held on Wednesday. The General Assembly saw the participation of key stakeholders in the agriculture sector, including private companies, government agencies, non-governmental organizations, international organizations and agronomists.
When you look at share of GDP of agriculture, languishing still at 6-7%. The vital statistic is that nearly 30% of the people of our country involved in agriculture, they don't have much chances of migrating to other industries. Agriculture sector also has to take off. So we have to trigger the change. Even His Excellency the President, which we are planning to do, to create this concept of one agriculture entity. We are going to get incorporated by Act of Parliament to give more muscle and teeth. 2 years ago, in the immediate period after COVID, we presented a 11-point program to government. One was, of course, this getting all of agriculture together. The second one is to have good, strong mechanism that our farmers can use, our entrepreneurs can use. And the second thing that we propose, to have a national agricultural enterprise resource planning system that will link market with the agronomy and the growing to the value chain, including finance and other technologies that are required. Young Dr. Anojan, who came up with the idea together with like-minded people to create something called Agro World. It's a fintech, agriculture technology platform. It will help with the use of smart technologies, farmers to be linked. Sad to say, countries like Bangladesh and some countries in Africa are taking a good part of the nearly $40 billion worth market for plant-based meat substitute. We are nowhere. If we can take even a small part of that, $40 billion is half Sri Lanka's GDP.
Life-saving medical equipment worth nearly $1.3 million was provided to Sri Lanka by the Australian government and the United Nations Population Fund.
Life-saving medical equipment valued at nearly $1.3 million was handed over to Sri Lanka with aid provided by the Australian government and the UNFE. The handing over ceremony was held at the Ministry of Health on Wednesday with Director General of Health Services Dr. Asela Gunawardena and Health Ministry officials in attendance. UNFPA country representative for Sri Lanka, Kunle Adanye, spoke at the event.
We're very proud that we stand at the middle of a multilateral and tripartite collaboration with Sri Lanka, with the Ministry of Health. And that is between the government and people of Australia, UNFPA, and Sri Lanka. And the government and people of Australia really came and supported us with considerable resources across different areas, including in health. One of the areas that Australia has done that is in the provision of drugs and medicines for sexual and reproductive health, especially family planning commodities, that have helped to protect the rights and choices of women and girls. And it didn't start today. We believe, and we will continue to work with Sri Lanka to achieve zero maternal deaths, zero unmet need for family planning, and of course zero gender-based violence and harmful practices.
Australian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Paul Stevens highlighted the need to ensure health care for women and girls.
These items will be distributed to hospitals, both to strengthen the primary healthcare service and also to enable outreach services for many women, girls and young people affected by the current crisis. We all know that women who have reproductive choices and access to health services are more empowered to seek and keep better jobs, contribute more to their families and contribute to national economic growth. With better family planning, family finances strengthen, leading to improved educational opportunities for children. This sets off a prosperity cycle that benefits future generations, and under the phenomenon known as the demographic dividend, this is a significant factor in bolstering national wealth while concurrently alleviating poverty rates.
Health Secretary Janaka Sri Chandragupta also spoke at the event.
The Ministry of Health is always working to ensure maintain the health facilities and services we have promised to our people of Sri Lanka. Especially difficult times, we have to look into how we can take care of our most vulnerable groups and those farthest away from our health facilities. These items will directly allow us to reach those groups and ensure our remote health facilities are equipped to better respond to the emergencies and provide the standard of services available in more urban settings.
The procurement of these medical equipment highlights the vital support given by the Australian government and the UNFPA to the Sri Lankan healthcare sector.
The Ministry of Education and UNICEF spearheaded a national initiative to help 1.6 million primary school children impacted by prolonged school closures and the sporadic disruptions to their education over the past 3 years to catch up on their learning. According to a Ministry of Education-led national assessment, 85% of grade 3 children are not achieving minimum proficiency in literacy and numeracy, which is essential in their transition to secondary school and beyond, both in life and work.
Importantly, to move this critical work forward and to implement the very progressive education reforms, there is an urgent need for this country to increase its national budget allocation for education, especially for primary grades. Currently, Sri Lanka spends less than 2% of GDP for education, which falls well below the international benchmark between 4 and 6%. So, to this effect, I would strongly encourage and urge the Ministry of Education to advocate for increased national budget allocation to enable you all to bridge the gaps in skill development in primary education and boost the human resource capacities this country requires to move forwards or move toward economic recovery and beyond. UNICEF will certainly advocate on its own and together with other partners for this to become a reality as well.
The learning crisis has affected vulnerable children in the most, including younger children in primary grades and those in plantation estates in the country. The Department of Wildlife says that Agbo, the tusker who is suffering gunshot injuries, will be subject to a special inspection and will then be administered with necessary treatment.
Wildlife officials said that the gunshot injury on the left leg of Agbo the tusker is yet to heal completely. They said the exact location of the bullet fragment embedded in the tusker's skin need to be determined in order to administer treatment. It's been over 2 months since Agbo the tusker was injured after a trap gun discharged and a bullet struck its left leg, seriously injuring the pachyderm. Wildlife officials from the Tirupane Reservation Office have been administering treatment to the tusker from time to time.
Remote villages in Mahavilachia, Anuradhapura are constantly threatened by encroaching wild elephants. Over the recent days, a herd of wild elephants encroached into the Pemaduwa, Oyamaduwa, Alivanguwa and Gulupattava as well as Bandaragam areas and destroyed cultivations.
News First with the people.
Be the first to know about the biggest stories as they break. Subscribe to News First English News Alerts. News First, your trusted English news channel.
A delegation from the Centre for Environment Justice engaged in an observation tour of the Hambantota managed elephant reserve.
The aim of the visit was to understand the reasons that have led to a spike in the human-elephant conflict in Sri Lanka. During the visit, the delegation from the Centre of Environmental Justice also raised their concerns over the deforestation taking place within the Hambantota managed elephant reserve.
The cup planting ceremony of the 4 Devalayas for the Kandy Asala Perahara festival took place on Thursday morning.
The cup planting ceremony took place at the auspicious time of 6:12 am. The process of presenting cup to the 4 Devalayas took place at the Kandy Sri Vishnu Devalaya on Wednesday.
Vehicular movement along the Bellangwila Raja Mahavihara will be restricted for a period of 3 days from Thursday due to the annual Perahara of the Bellangwila Raja Mahavihara. The 119 bus route from Dehiwala to Maharagama will be closed for traffic from Buralaskamo and Bellanthura Junction from 7 pm to 10 pm. The Buralaskamo Junction, Bellanthura Junction, Viharamavata Junction will be closed for traffic from 7 pm to 2 am on Friday and Saturday due to the Perahara procession. Sri Lanka police requested motorists to use alternative routes during the period.
Divi Savya, the second leg of the Divi Savya program to provide much needed school books and stationery items to school children in Sri Lanka. 18th of August, Navala and Vilgamua.
Dai Daruwange Anagate Winuwin Divi Savya, LOLC Prajasatkara Mehevara.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Lunchtime News here on News First. Thank you for watching. Have yourself a great day.